in food supply chains, transitioning into a circular economy. And I'm joined by track chairs Madi Bashiri, and is Benny here as well? Not sure if Benny's here. Maddie's here. Hi, Maddie. How are you?
Hi, Jordan. Hi, everyone.
Good.
Hello, everyone.
So we've actually got 6 presentations over the next 2 hours until 4 o'clock, just past 4 o'clock. So it's going to be very kind of jam-packed, and I'll start to remind speakers that it's a 15-minute presentation followed by 5 minutes of questions. I think we are going to have 6 speakers to make sure we keep to time. We finish on time. This session is being recorded, so if anyone who couldn't make it today, we'll post this online afterwards, and they can watch it afterwards. I'd like to just say thank you in advance for the speakers that present. There's some really interesting presentations coming up. If you have any questions, put them in the chat, and there'll be an opportunity to ask the speakers. And Maddie Bashiri, one of my colleagues, is here. So we're both from the Faculty of Business and Law at the Coventry University, in the Sustainable Consumption and Production Cluster area of work. So great. Okay, so what's the time at the moment? So we've got a few minutes before we start. Let's make sure all the presenters are present. So in the agenda, I've ordered the presenters just alphabetically by surname, but if there's anyone who wants to change the position because they might be ready, then that's fine. We can go a bit earlier if someone isn't ready and someone is. Yeah, do you have any comments, Maddie, from the start?
Yeah, thank you so much, Jordan. Very good start, and thank you everyone for coming to this session. I just wanted to summarize what will be happen today in this session if everyone attends the session. So we have very good high quality papers. We have 2 review papers regarding to the resilient food supply chain, and also decision-making methods for food supply chain as well. And also we have 2 different mathematical-based optimization decision-making. One of them is about the multi-objective decision-making, multi-objective mathematical modeling, and the other one is about the simulation-based optimization. Both of them are in the food supply chain. And also we will have another talk regarding to the coffee supply chain and about the coffee subject, and also we will have another interesting topic related to the sustainable food packaging materials. So I think it's very diverse enough in terms of the different types of decision making in the food supply chain, and considering the resilience and circular economy. This is from me, Jordan. If you want, we can start.
Quite an international track as well. So we've got speakers from Indonesia. There's also Iranian universities involved as well in this track, which is great. So the first speaker, paper Green Supply Chain Optimization using Multi-Objective Mathematical Modeling and Simulation-Based Optimization. Are they present, and do they want to share their screen and begin? Oh, hi, Benny, as well.
Hello.
Hi, Benny.
Hi, Maddie. Hi, everyone.
I can see Eshan as well. I know you're presenting. You can always go first if you like instead.
Who's the first presenter?
First presenter.
Babakhani.
Just joining at the moment.
Oh, I see.
You want me to start with you?
Yes, go for it.
Okay, I share my screen. Is my screen is shared? You can see my screen, yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you everyone for joining this presentation. About this actually it is the literature review of the food supply chain and the sustainability in the past, around, I can say past decades, that in this systematic literature review, I try to look at what is the things, models, and different decisions that the different suppliers and the other stakeholders is taking into the case of the food supply chain. By the name, my name is Ehsan. I'm the lecturer in Operation and Supply Chain Management, Coventry University, and just joining this one. This research is in the first step of the process, and hopefully I will show you the findings until now that it comes through in the case of the supply chain, and as the aims shows to review the existing literature on models and the analysis methods. And mostly, as we heard from the panelists, that in the case of the supply chain these days, the sustainability and especially the green supply chain is the most important thing in these decades. In the case of the food supply chain and how it's defined in the case of the papers and what the researchers look at, that one is, as everyone knows, the process of the food supply chain comes back from the start point of the farmers and until go at the end to the hand of the consumers. So the supply chains of the food is the complex and the global network because it is not related to any specific country or any specific regions. As it goes much more globalizations, the networks became much more complex and there are much more stakeholders involved in these cases. And year by year, because of different reasons or the crisis, we see that there is a different issues in the case of the food, and especially the supply chain. For example, this morning, as you heard in the case of the Morrison in news comes that the shortage of, for example, drivers has a huge effect on the supply chain and the prices, especially that one goes up. In the case of how I did the systematic literature review, it goes back by the definition of the Trump about the systematic review and how the process should go forward as I take it in the 5 steps. In my literature, I decided to find my data through the database Scopus. And why just Scopus? Because after looking different type of databases, I see that the most enriched ones that has much more articles that related to our research, and based on the access to the articles, Scopus can be the best database that I want to look at these ones. What I did as a keywords and the strings in my research, I just typed the food and the supply chain and decision making as a keywords in the title and abstracts of the papers, and my years I limited to above 2010 until May 2021. And the last papers comes out as a, we can see in here that the whole papers that comes out after searching, it is 444. Then after reducing and duplicating all of them, then at the end, in the last stage, I have 117 articles that I decided to analyze on that one. And for the whole process, it comes to the Excel files as I put different themes and clarified them. But as I mentioned, it is in the first step, so many other aspects is going on, but hopefully we see that what is the findings until now. In the case of the findings after putting these papers, I see that the most journals that publish about the food supply chain decision making based on my keywords comes as a Journal of Clearing Productions with the highest one. And as I mentioned, it is 2010 above, because I see that in some cases there are much more articles, fewer than that. But because of we consider the limited years, it comes as a Journal of the Clear Production. And the Sustainability Journal of the Switzerland, it comes as a second. as most of the sustainable issues on the food production come in this way. The interesting thing is about the journal of the journals that talk about the AI, electricians, and the networks. And especially when we look at the methods that they consider to look and how the findings comes, it shows that the quantitative and the mathematic, if we want to consider both of them as analyses, most of the methods that analyze this data comes in these ways that they consider to look and solve the issue of the supply chain, mostly through the quantitative and mathematical ways. But a few of them also considers mixed methods to go as why the food supply chain has big issues and how it takes forward. Another point is in the case of the analysis levels and how the structure of the food looks like, it comes as the decisions. Also, our findings is look at the others that already published in the few months by Chuan, that the same level of the analysis, mostly the researchers are look forward when they want to consider different aspects of the supply chain and where is the issue and how it should looks like. As we can see in the case of the individual level, mostly the farmers, it comes and the managers and, for example, the other multiple actors like the stakeholders that involved in the case of the supply chain. When it comes to the stages from the process until the food one goes to the hand of the consumer, you will see that in the supply chain there are so many other aspects and the stages when the food one goes from one step to another one. And we see that here that the processing of the food and the packaging is some of the issues that until now they didn't consider so much. But for example, the e-commerce, especially, for example, today we see that in the panelists, they talk about Amazon and these e-retailers, how they involved in the case of the providing the foods and delivering to the consumers. And there are just a few, very, very few papers already looked at this issue and how the, I can say, e-retailers or e-commerce want to affect the supply chain of the product and how it has an impact on the environment and the other analyses. About the products group, we will see that, again, the fresh fruit and the vegetables or the animal products is most of the main factors that the papers are looking forward these in the last decades and how they concerns about especially the animal productions in the case of the food and how it wanna affect the whole process and the circular of the productions. And as you know, the most of the farmers and the places about the geographical, it goes back to mostly East Asia and Far Asia that the most of the farmers are allocating there, or maybe in the Europe that in the case of the production for the vegetables come mostly in this side. Then it goes in the case of the process and how the food supply chain wanna affect especially the environment. And you will see that in the middle, the green one, there is the process of the supply chain from the production, storage, distribution, and goes into the hand of the consumption. And how each one of these levels have a side effects on the case of the environment, especially when, as we can see, one of the main issues these days is related to the floods. And all of this process of the supply chain, it has been affected by the floods as well. And that's the floods that affects the whole supply chain food, the process, and especially the price of the food. As we can see, for example, in the productions, when it comes to the product of the products, we see that there is different environmental variability in different issues. As, for example, considering the pests, considering the wildfires, the nature hazards, and the other issues. And from the other side, it affects mostly the price of the products. And especially, for example, these days, that we should add the drivers into that one, that it affects the whole prices. And when it comes to the storage and the process, again, we will see that all of these mostly related to the humanity and effects of the employees and staff, on how, again, it affects the storage and the process. But we will see that in the last decades that most of the products, it comes to the using of AI and the IT to reduce the impacts on the environment. And when it goes to the distribution and retail factors, again, the natural hazard and the floods are the most aspects of the environment that we should consider on how they affect the supply chain of the whole products. And at the bottom of the file, we should add again, all of them is related mostly to the quality and the safety of the product, on how each one of them can be affected and each one of them can be released through different sites, and how we can reduce them to have a much more less side effect on the environment. As we know, there are so many things that affects the waste of the products and the food. But from until now, the research from our findings shows that there are 4 main factors that affect the food waste, and why the huge volume of the waste happens in the environment. You will see that most of them is related to the interruptions through the environment, or maybe human factors, or maybe it goes between the different stakeholders and the dealers in the case of the food. As buyer and supplier agreements, sometimes in the case of the dealing, it affects the expire and the quality of the products. Then in the case of the interruptions of the supply chain, we have so many effects like the environmental factors, Brexit, the pandemic, and all of these factors are the main ones that looks at how the food is waste and how it can be managed more, maybe in the future much more better. And it was most of the findings until now that I see in the papers, but it is the process of the research, and still most of them should be works in depth to see what other findings can we find. But until now, we see that the contribution mostly goes back into the policymakers, and especially the people that in the top management and levels can affect and push the people in the case of the how they should use foods in the case of much more better quality, less waste and disruptions. And one of the things that I see in one of the papers, it goes back to the penalize of the any stakeholders that have a side effects on the case of the wasting the foods. And some of them already want to consider this one. Then hopefully by looking at the problems and looking at the gaps, we can have a much more less side effects in the case of the foods and the productions and the environment. And that's some of the papers, as I mentioned, it is around 170 articles. I just put a few of them here, but all of the rest is in the process of developing, and any questions or accessing to each one of them, I'm more than happy to look at that. Thank you very much. And hopefully, if there is any questions or any points, I'm happy to answer or type it in the chat box. Maybe at the end, I don't know what is the process of the questions.
Thank you, Ehsan, for your presentation. It was very helpful. But I have a question, and then I will double check the chat box if anyone has any question as well. So Ehsan, according to your study and your survey which you did you find any particular analytical methods that is used for decision-making purposes? Because you discovered different topics, but you didn't talk about the analytical methods that these papers have used. Can you say some things about that, please?
For that levels, I tried to finalize that one. Unfortunately, until today, didn't reach to that levels for the analytical levels. But it shows that there are so many papers, especially in the case of the around 30% of the papers is looking at the models of the analytical and how it looks like. But I didn't look at this ones in depth yet, as analyzing all of the papers, it takes time. But hopefully I update these versions and pass it to everyone to look at that.
Thank you so much. Is there any question regarding to the Ehsan's presentation, please? I don't see that any comment or question regarding to your presentation, but feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat box if you have any question from Ehsan, please.
Yeah, I think we've got time for maybe one more question, then we'll move on.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I've got a question. It's more, what's this research leading to? So you've got a good idea of these different methods of decision making, but what's the kind of next stage of the research?
To find the rest of the gap about the how the different stakeholders want to make decisions on the case of this, and especially looking at the models until now and the decisions that has been taken now, and to see how it has a effect on the supply chain and what is the gap or what is missing to give the proper advice, especially in the case of the policy levels, on how the next step is or how they can manage it better in the future.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Anything else? If not, I believe that we couldn't ask Nikta to present her study. So now we can go back to the presentations based on the order that Jordan has distributed it before between us. So Nikta, do you hear me? Could you please come and share your screen now?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Let me share my screen.
Excellent. While you are sharing your screen, I believe that I would like to say some things about your presentation, and I believe that you are going to cover about the multi-objective mathematical modeling and simulation-based optimization for the green food supply chain. So I believe that it has been used in a case study for a Koorosh Protein Products Company. So go ahead,
Yes.
please. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Today I'm going to talk about green food supply chain optimization using multi-objective mathematical modeling and simulation-based optimization with a case study in Iran, Koorosh Protein Products Company. In this presentation, we'll discuss in these 5 contents. The first part is introduction. In the next part, we will pass through the literature review. In the third part, we describe the problem statement and methodology in data collections. Then the results and conclusions show up. And the last part will be given to future studies. In the first part, we will have a look on these 4 subjects, such as study main problems, which talks about the importance of food supply chain and green supply chain. Then subject matters, which introduces the case study. Research necessity, which check out the importance of the study in theoretical and practical aspects. And finally, research goals. Supplying food has been one of the world's significant and vital needs for human beings. Also, rapid population growth has led to a significant increase in food demand. Meat and poultry as an essential part of any healthy diet plays a vital role and a big share in the food supply. In order to be effective, a strong food supply chain network needs to have a cost-effective design about locations decisions, as well as optimal quantities of products that are transferred in the network. So food supply chain has been considered as one of the main concerns of human beings, as well as their basic needs. In particular, the supply chain of perishable food has always been one of the challenging management issues. As said before, meat as an important source of nutrition is growing in so far as meat production quadrupled over past 50 years. And the world now produces more than 320 million tons each year. Beside this production of meat, beside production of meat has large environmental impacts, for instance, increasing greenhouse gas emissions. So one of the world's most pressing challenges is to produce meat and other protein products in a way that reduce its environmental impacts. Greenhouse and other environmental matters can potentially lead to the extinction of mankind. Therefore, environmental protection should become a priority for every organizational programs and decisions. As you can see in these charts, both global average temperature and annual carbon dioxide emissions, particularly in Iran, are increasing. In this study, the under investigation supply chain is a multi-product, multi-period, multi-objective, and four-echelon food supply chain that starts from supplier who prepare raw material and ends with customer who purchase and consume processed product. And now the case study, the research data has been extracted from Koorosh Protein Company, that is a subset of Golrang Industrial Group, which is the biggest FMCG companies in Iran. This company includes fresh products, processed products, sausages, and ready-to-eat frozen products, including kebabs, hamburgers, etc. And now we reach to research necessity. In the theoretical aspect, as you can see in this chart, with combining these four words, simulation, optimization, food supply chain, and green supply chain, the number of these articles is 10. And in the practical aspect, we discussed in these three subjects: reducing transportation costs, reducing CO2 emissions released in a transportation network, and increasing resource utilization, considering their capacities. And research goals, that the main goal is, again, green food supply chain optimization using multi-objective mathematical modeling and simulation-based optimization of Koorosh Protein Products Company. And two questions. The first one, which suppliers and retailers in the green supply chain of Koorosh Protein Products Company should be selected? And also, what is the number of optimal products for transportation within the mentioned supply chain? Now, in the second part, we will pass through the literature review, study analysis in Escopus, and study contributions. We have done our research within these four keywords: multi-objective optimization in supply chain simulation, green supply chain optimization, and a simulation-based optimization in supply chain. As you can see, the studies, procedures, the trend of food supply chain, and simulation-based optimizations in the research, they are both growing and increasing. And if we want to show the number of studies, you can see that with combining of these two words of simulation and optimizations, the number of articles in this field is 325,766. The number of researched article with combining another word with that two words, that is food supply chain, the number of articles reaches 294. And as said before, the number of articles from combination of these four keywords decreases to 10. And our study contributions, changing and expansion the elementary and the simple model, which was studied in articles before, the case study, which we have employed real data, and few articles that are researched in this field. In part 3, in methodology, we are talking about research methodology, model and problem description, simulation, and data collection. As you can see, our time horizon was limited. Our data type is quantitative. Our data collection is descriptive. Objective type is practical. And the software we've used are GAMS, ARENA, and SPSS. Now the model descriptions that we will describe assumptions, indices, parameters, decision variables, objective functions, and constraints. Here are the assumptions that I would say. Customer demand is predefined and must be met. The maximum capacity of suppliers, manufacturers, and retailers is known. The manufacturer and retailer have no initial inventory. Road transport has been selected to transport products over the network. Refrigerated machines with different capacities are used to transport livestock or products, and demand is generated by end user. Now you can see the indices, the sets. S stands for supplier, M manufacturer or retailers, C for customer, J for products, T for time, and V for vehicles. Then parameters in the next slide. P sub SJT stands for purchasing cost. Then TD sub SMMR or RC are the shipping distances from any resource to another. TC sub SMJT, MRJT, RCJT are the unit shipping cost per kilometers. D sub CJT stands for customer demand. X, V, and U are the maximum supply or production capacity of supplier, manufacturer, and retailer. And we have alpha, that is a CO2 emission coefficient per kilometer per period T. We have E cap sub T, that is the maximum carbon emissions. W sub J is product weight, and BE are standing for fixed cost of cooperating or constructing with any resource. And we have T cap max or mean for any resource that are maximum or minimum car capacity, which are sending from one resource to another. And we have R sub P, which is fine rate for not using the maximum capacity due to the amount of carbon emissions. Now we have decision variables. The Q sub SMJVT, MRJVT, or CJVT are the number of products that are transferred from any resource to another. And we have the binary variables, and E plus E minus, that are the amount of carbon emissions that can be purchased, or the marketable carbon according to the environmental policy plans. So now we have three conflicting objective functions that I will describe to you from the first one. The first goal is to minimize the total cost of transport and fixed costs by considering the maximum capacity. The first part is related to the cost of purchasing each ton of livestock from supplier to manufacturer, and its transportation cost, considering again the maximum capacity. The second and the third part also consider transportation from manufacturer to retailer and retailer to customer. And the last part deals with the fixed costs, cooperating with supplier constructing manufacturer, and cooperating with retailer. The second objective function again minimizes the amount of CO2 emissions from transportation distances from supplier to manufacturer, from manufacturer to retailer, from retailer to customer according to the maximum capacity and CO2 emissions. There is also a fine cost to minimize the remained capacity which is not used. And the last objective function stands for maximizing capacity utilization. In each segment, the first part considers the function of utilizing the supply capacity of the supplier. The second and the third part considers utilization of the production capacity in the manufacturing unit and the supply in the retail unit. Now we have constraints. The first three constraints are the maximum capacity limits for supplier, manufacturer, and retailer. The two following constraints state that the input and output product must be equal in each of the manufacturer and retailer. And the last one in this slide satisfies customer demand for each product. Here, the first one indicates the range of capacity limits for delivery from supplier to manufacturer by each vehicle. The next two followings indicate that the shipment is made between two levels of supplier and manufacturer if the facilities are selected and active. Again, the next one indicates the range of capacity constraint sent from manufacturer to retailer. The next two followings again are indicate that the transfer is made between two levels of manufacturer and retailers if the facilities are selected and active. And the next one is again, sorry, I missed that. Where was it? The next two following, I said that. The next one again indicate the range of capacity constraint to be sent from retailer to customer. And the last one indicates that the transfer is made between two levels of retailer and customer if the facility of the retailer level is selected and active. And here the first constraint indicates the amount of allowable CO2 emission based on policy plans along the supply chain. And the next two following constraints show the binary and non-negative variables. Here we have the simulation that we have done this in two parts. You can see the supply section, that supply of raw materials from 3 suppliers, and after loading the trucks, raw materials are checked. After confirmation, transferred to the destination. And here is the distribution simulation. I think I have so little time. And now we have a data collection. In this part, we have estimated 5 parameters. The first one is purchasing cost per ton of livestock from supplier. That, as you can see, the purchase cost follows the normal equation distribution. The second one, that is shipping distance from supplier to manufacturer, follows the triangular distribution function with a minimum of 10 kilometers and average of 15 and maximum of 25. The third one is shipping distance from manufacturer to retailer, which follows the uniform function with a minimum value of 10 and maximum of 15. Shipping distance from retailer to customer again follows the triangular distribution function with a low limit of 5, an average of 10, and a maximum of 12. And the last one, which is a customer demand for product J, is a normal distribution with an average of 299 tons with a standard deviation of 19.8. In the fourth part that will reach to conclusion, we will answer the questions and the epsilon amounts. As you can see, the epsilon values for the second and third objective function, which are extracted from GAMS software, and the values of first, second, and third objective. I think the first column is not correct because it should be epsilon. I don't know why it is like that. Okay, now the question that was which suppliers and retailers in the green supply chain of Koorosh Protein Products Company should be selected. Also, what is the number of optimal products for transportation within the mentioned supply chain? That you can see all of them in the tables. The number of J products transferred from supplier to manufacturers. Here are the number of products transferred from manufacturer to retailer. And here are the number of products transferred from retailer to customer that you can see the values. Results and future studies now. You can see the results for the first, second, and third objective functions that, as I said before, they are conflicting objective functions. And suggestions for future studies that I have summarized in the 4 parts is considering the lost sale component in the mathematical model. It is suggested to use fuzzy uncertainty theory. The assumption of initial inventory can be added to the mathematical model. And due to the perishability of products, I think minimizing the delivery time can also be included in this model. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Nikta. Very, very interesting presentation. Although we have a little bit, I mean, according to the allocated time, we are a little bit late on that, but I would like the participants to ask their questions. If there is any question, you can raise your hand or just put it in the chat box for Nikta's presentation, please. If there is no question, because I like your presentation, Nikta, so I would
Thank you so much.
To ask my question regarding to your presentation, and it is that, as far as I understood, you used a mathematical modeling with 3 objectives, and then you use the epsilon constraint method or something like that to analyze the performance of these objectives with together. And also you used the simulation optimization for that. So my question is that, what is the connection between these 2 separate things? I mean, the optimization with the mathematical model and simulation optimization. How did you connect these 2 components together?
For estimating that parameters, I used a simulation, and then for connecting the optimization and simulation, I was thinking about the uncertainty. And because when I solved the model in the GAMS with the epsilon constraint method, I was employing the real data, and I was simulating our company in the supply and distribution. Then after data collection and comparing the data extracted from simulation and real data, I was I wanted to make sure that my model is just doing correct, and is if the answers, any answers that I extracted from the model are reliable. So this was the connection that I was using simulation.
Okay, yeah. As a very short suggestion for you for the future study is that if you can connect these two components to be done in a one go, it means that your mathematical model to be used during your simulation, I believe that the value of the study will be much higher. But anyway, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I can see that Professor Benny has asked another question in the chat box. So Benny, do you want to ask your question yourself, or I can read from the chat box?
Whichever, it doesn't matter. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button on the wrong screen. But I'm interested in your simulation models, and I understand that when you're developing a simulation models, then you will have some assumptions, yeah, and depending on different assumptions that you are taking, you may have different set of outputs in there. So what's your experience in that, developing the simulation models?
Nikta, could you answer the Professor Benny's comment, please, or question?
I couldn't get that. What was the purpose? I think it was similar to your question, I think.
No. Benny asked you that, how did you, analyze the results of your analysis by changing the input parameters? It is similar, but his point of view is that, how did you use it? For example, what software did you use, and how did you analyze your simulation results?
The simulation, I used Arena, and the software I used for solving my mathematical model was GAMS. But I don't know what is, again, the purpose. I don't know.
Benny, could you ask your question if it is not answered yet?
When you are developing the discrete event simulation models using Arena, for example, one of the important part that you need to think about is the assumptions, isn't it? So I was thinking, what kind of assumptions that you make? What is the input data? What is the link between entities in the model? Is assumption important in your case?
Nikta, did you understand the question?
I think I set my assumptions in the first of my.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take a look.
Yeah.
The mathematical model, I just set my assumptions that the customer demand maximum capacity, and there was no initial inventory. This was my assumptions. These were my assumptions.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikta, and thank you, Benny, for your valuable question. Now, if there is no question, we can go to the third presentation according to the order, which I see is Sarah's.
Second one, because
Sarah.
yeah. So the order changed slightly, so we're on to second one.
Yes, Sarah.
Hi,
Sarah,
everyone.
are you here? Okay.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well. Yeah. Do you want to share your screen, Sarah?
Yes, sure.
Sarah, it is not in the presentation mode, but if you want to carry on, you can.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, great. Go ahead.
My name is Sarah Ghanbari. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to present this survey in the Future of Food Symposium. Decision making for resilient food supply chain using operations research, a survey is the title of this research. I need to clarify that in this study, first I focused on resilient food supply chains from 2014 to 2021. But the number of publications with desired criteria was not too much. So I started to search resilient supply chains besides the resilient food supply chain to reach more reliable conclusions and statistics about resiliency. So in some parts in this presentation, we can see two different pie charts, and one of them is related to food, resilient food supply chain, and the other is resilient supply chain.
Sorry, Sarah, I think we can see only your first slide.
Yeah, those were some, I don't know, definitions I wanted to give before starting my presentation.
Yeah.
In this slide, we see a short review of whole presentation. First, I will explain the review method based on systematic literature review proposed by Tranfield on 2009. Then I will talk about resilient supply chain, resilient food supply chain. In the next step, resilient strategy, then food supply chain criteria, uncertainty criteria, and finally, mathematical model characteristics of these articles are discussed. This study follows the 5 phases of systematic literature review, which are question formulation, location of studies, study selection, analysis, and reporting. The first phase in conducting a systematic literature review is to define research questions, which are, in this study, are what resilience elements and strategies can be applied to resilient supply chain or resilient food supply chain, how uncertainty is addressed when designing these supply chains, which mathematical approaches have been used, which solving approaches, and at last, I talk about objective criteria in these supply chains. I searched those science and Science Direct database to find these articles. These are keywords that I searched to find and collect the papers: resilient and supply chain, resilient food supply chain, resilient agricultural supply chain, resilient supply chain network design, resilient food supply chain, and network design. These are some criteria that I categorized the collected articles into these criteria, and I will talk about them in next slides. Resilient food supply chain can be defined as capability to absorb instabilities. And when it comes to the food supply chain, it becomes more important. Resilience in agro-food supply chains is an area of significant importance nowadays due to growing uncertainties in this area. For example, globalization that causes higher uncertainties in this supply chain. And another example is COVID-19, particularly in 2020. The global pandemic caused by the COVID-19 disease has affected all economies and societies worldwide. Some supply chains have experienced an increase of demand that they cannot satisfy. So it is just an example of many that support the significance of designing and considering a resilient food supply chain. Okay. To cope with potential disruptions, several risk mitigation strategies have been presented in the literature. Here we have some of them, and these strategies are most frequent and remarkable. Applying risk mitigation strategies lead to supply chain flexibility and better performance. For example, fortification strategy can guarantee capacity losses when disruptions happen, and emergency stock means to keep some extra quantity in our nodes, in our facilities, in and then we can use them in emergency situation. Backup facilities, another one, and used when the supplier or any facility in our supply chain cannot supply the orders. And if we look at the pie chart, we can observe that backup facility is the highest with 33% in the articles. And this pie chart is related to resilient supply chains and not a resilient food supply chain. And then we find emergency stock to be the second highest with 25%, and multiple sourcing consumed 20% of share. In this slide, we talk about resilient elements or resilient elements in food supply chain, particularly in food supply chains. These are divided to two groups, and this division refers to whether resilience elements were applicable in response to disruptions within an individual organization. They are intra-organizational, or they are within a supply chain, and they are intra-supply chain. Intra-supply chain means a problem that happened in the supply chain, for example, loss of a specific supplier. And individual organization means, for example, machinery failure. And these are most repetitive ones. Of course, they were more than these few, but I just jot down here the most repetitive ones, which are collaboration, means it refers to two or more actors working together in a supply chain, and the aim is to reduce uncertainties and complexities. And then in the intra-organizational, we have flexibility and risk-aware culture. Risk-aware culture means, for example, to have a risk management program in a firm, and flexibility means ability of an organization to adapt with minimum time and effort. Okay. Agribusiness supply chains involve more sources of uncertainty than typical manufacturing supply chains. Because of some characteristics such as perishability, natural hazards, industrial accidents, seasonality, epidemics, long supply lead time. It means food supply chain face other problems and risks that typical supply chain do, but these are some extra challenges for food supply chain. In the pie chart, it's clear that it's in a resilient food supply chain. 66% of articles considered perishability in their publications, and 60% considered natural hazards. After that, epidemics with 10%, and industrial accident consumption share is 8%. We can divide food. We can have a division and categorize food into different types, and we have different category for them. But in this survey, I divided them into two groups. Perishable, I mean, some products like fruit, meat, vegetables, they are perishable. Of course, long life foods are perishable too, but these are high, we can say high perishable foods. Fruits, meats, they're high perishable. And if you pay attention to the pie chart, the most part is perishable foods. I mean, the most of the articles reviewed by this survey considered perishable products in their publications, like fruits, meats, I don't know, these things, but just 14% of them considered long life product like grains or oil seeds, and 36% of them just talked about some food or agricultural products in general and didn't say anything specific that what is their product. Disruptions are natural and threats that are in the natural. I mean, they are like earthquakes, floods, strikes, and they have severe impact and low likelihood. But in contrast, we have operational risks. They are they have low impact but a frequent occurrence, like variable demand, cost uncertainty in the supply chain, equipment damage, or for example, workforce shortage. We can see that here on the left side, we have resilient supply chains that around half of the articles consider disruptions in their publications, and 24% considered both of the operational risks and disruptions, and 28% of articles considered operational risks. And on the right side, we have resilient food supply chains that disruptions represent the most considerable portion. It's 53%, and 26% is for operational risks, and 21% of articles considered both of these uncertainties in their model. Uncertainty approach refers to the way the authors modeled uncertain parameters. For example, here we have scenarios with probabilities, scenarios without probabilities, probability distribution, and fuzzy numbers. Again, if we compare these pie charts, we see scenarios with probabilities is consumed the most in both of them. And then we have probability distribution with 23%. And in resilient food supply chain, scenarios with without probabilities and probability distribution are equal. But as we see in resilient supply chain, scenarios without probability consumed 5%. This is because, resilient food supply chain, as I mentioned in the first of presentation, they are not too much. There are around 20 articles that I found in these years. And on the left side, we have a resilient supply chain. I think it's more reliable because of the number of publications. This is, I wanted to describe the difference of them. In the model, it is usual to consider some parameters as uncertain and others as known. Common uncertain parameters are demand, cost, capacity, supply, node disruption, link disruption, and price. And they are common, and of course, there are other uncertain parameters too. And here we can have, we can see the percentage of share of each of the uncertain parameters in resilient supply chain, resilient food supply chain. And as it is shown, demand is the highest with 37 in resilient food supply chain and 24 in resilient supply chain. In resilient supply chain, we have node disruption with 26%. And another frequent uncertain parameter in resilient food supply chain is supply with 21%. And on the second level in resilient supply chain, we have capacity with 19% of frequency. Mathematical approach refers to the method used to model the problem. Here we have a stochastic programming, mixed integer linear programming, robust optimization, fuzzy programming, mixed integer nonlinear programming, and goal programming. As you see, stochastic programming in both of the pie charts is consumed the most. After that, we have mixed integer linear programming followed by robust optimization. And after that, we have fuzzy programming. Solving approach refers to the method employed by the authors to solve the proposed model. Exact method is one of them and is the highest with around 70% in both of the pie charts. Then we have simulation with around 20%. And after that, we have meta-heuristic. And in observed articles in resilient food supply chains, no heuristic method was used, but in resilient supply chain, it consumed 2% of publications. Variables like cost, income, or profit, or resilience, CO2 emissions, they are usually minimized or maximized in mathematical model when designing a supply chain network. And here we can see some frequent minimization objective criterion like cost, CO2 emission, and of course we have excuse me, and of course we have profit, resilience, and net present value for maximization. And in the pie chart, we can see the share of each of these criterion. Cost and profit represents the most considerable portion in both of the pie charts, and resilience is the next one in maximization, and connectivity follows the resilience with 12%. And also in minimization, we see that CO2 emissions is in the second level with 19%. Then we have environmental impact, and then minimization of lead time. Thank you for your time and attention. Now I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. It was interesting, although it is just a literature review, but it was interesting and we enjoyed your presentation. Now, I would like to ask our colleagues and our participants to ask their questions. If they have, you can use your chat box or raise your hand to ask your question, please. Any question? If not, Sarah, I would like to ask my question here as well. But
Yes,
yeah, Sarah, I assume that, for example, in a pie chart, could you bring one of your pie charts, please?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, for example, when you say about the 53% as a disruption on the resilient supply chain, it's just an example. If you bring one of the pie charts, I would like to ask to make it clear for me. If it is not easy for you to bring, don't worry, just, yeah. If you click on, yeah, that's fine. For example, when you say it is obvious, can you go to the next slide or one before, please? Because I believe that is regarding the, and one more, one before that. Yes, for example, when we say the 39% of resilience, the studies have focused on 39% have focused on the maximization of the resilience of the supply chain. So my question is that, do you talk about the all studies, or do you talk about the studies which have used the mathematical modeling and optimization in their as their analytical method? Which one is correct?
Exactly the second one, the publications that use mathematical model.
Okay. If it is that,
yes,
which is more valuable now, so I strongly suggest you to continue your research, to add your suggestions for the future studies or your as a gap analysis. For example, I believe that you have a clear idea that in the food supply chain, of course, in the resilient food supply chain, what do you suggest for the other researchers to continue? that needs to be considered in terms of the publications and academic sites. And of course, I believe that if anyone has the application side as well, then both of them can be integrated, and then a new research with high impact can be started. So I strongly suggest you to continue this research, to extract the research gaps, to show the other researchers to continue your study in terms of what can be done in the future in the continuing of your research on the food supply chain management, resilient food supply chain using the mathematical modeling and optimization. Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sure. Thank you so much for your comments.
No, thanks.
May I ask to Sarah, please?
Yes, please.
Yes, moderator, can I ask? Yeah, okay.
Yes, please. Please.
Sarah, yes, I'm Sonny Harsono from Indonesia. I would like to know about how to measure carbon dioxide emission and what the meaning of environmental impact. Do you do you have idea about the life cycle assessment for this one, or you take taken data from secondary opinion? Thank you very much.
Excuse me if I.
Yeah, it's what for
I'm not
objective
sure.
criterion. Yes, and how to measure carbon dioxide emissions and
Look,
what the environmental impact. Yeah.
Look, there are ways to
Okay, sorry.
measure it. For example, you know, we can find it in the literature by the term, for example, carbon footprint or water footprint, for example. One way hits me, it now came to my mind. For example, you can measure it by, for example, in transporting goods between different nodes. Of course, some, for example, trucks are used. Each of these trucks produce a specific amount of carbon dioxide.
Okay.
And for example, by the number of trucks in, for example, the number of, I mean, how many times they should go from the supplier, for example, to, I don't know, warehouse. By doing these, I don't know, it's just a multiple maybe. Then you can find, for example, the amount of carbon dioxide emission, and for example, it can be an objective function to be minimized as an, it can be considered in one objective with, for example, cost, and also you can separate it and separately minimize it, which is, for example, it turns the supply chain into green supply chain, for example, if you consider carbon dioxide or water footprint in your model. And that's it.
And the environmental impacts, will you do? Did you use the LCA, life cycle assessment, for to do it, or something else? Environmental impact number 3.
Question.
So maybe I can help more. So thank you, Sonny. It was very helpful and very good comment. Sarah, according to the Sonny's great suggestion, I think you only considered the CO2 emission and you didn't consider what is the impact of CO2 emission. So there are some impacts that might need to be considered. So it is a great suggestion, and I think you need to consider this in your future studies.
Yeah.
But,
Thank you so much. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much for your for you both for the presentation and the questions. And because I would like not to be to complete the session in a timely manner, I would like to invite the next presenter. I believe he is Harsono. So can I ask you please present your study? Oh, Sonny. Okay. Could you please share your screen and present your presentation, please?
Okay. Moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Just a moment. Oh, sorry, Mahdi, because I sent before is my data is corrupt. So I resend today to the committee. I hope it is not any problem now, because last time is I cannot open myself too. So it's now is I will try to open it now. Okay, thank you very much. Can I what is called? Oh, can I what is screen? Sorry.
The share screen should be at the bottom of your screen.
Yes, please. Can I get share screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for my time. And now I want to discuss about my recent research I'm doing now, and already done a few times, and last time in renewable energy from spent coffee ground in Indonesia. But I would like to about in food, how to use spent coffee ground as a what is called mushroom medium growth. You know that in our country, in Indonesia, we have a lot of coffee can produce from everywhere in our islands, like in Sumatra, Java, and also another in Papua. You know, a lot of cafes now, coffee cafes now is grow in every city, like in medium city too. But the problem is we have a lot of what is called waste. The waste is much more higher than before. You know that the coffee, the spent coffee is acid. The pH is around 3.4 until 4.2. So the problem is when the coffee shops is closed during the nights, they just throw away to the rubbish bin, and the rubbish bin sent to the, sometimes it's on the jumps near the river. So it's a make problem for the biota and also the fish and also ecosystem in the near the village here. The main process of the growing coffee butters is roasting. Like this, you can see this one on the left side. The coffee is very nice, yeah. Like in mountain of Ijen, so a lot of coffee is sent to Jakarta, also to Bali, and the processes as base time and the product are characterized by significant chemical changes. And the coffee bean is a quite delicious beverage, and so that. Is it the problem for our country that drinking coffee become one of the ways to celebrate important things? But the problem is the environment. As I'm an environmentalist, I worked in LCA before, life cycle assessment before. That for the coffee itself, it's a good positive thing if we can utilize the waste, the spent coffee waste. In the first thinking in our group research, in Indonesia, we would like to make renewable energy as biodiesel, but it's still doing now. But another thing is how to make this one become good things for food. Ground coffee is popular beverage, and like this, 2 billion cup of coffee is per day by world communities. So is you can see this on the left side. So a lot of waste is just what is called not collected well. We just they just throw away, and they have a problem for the environment. Based on the roasting temperature, coffee divide groups like roast, medium roast, and dark roast. So we can see this from the sheet here. So a lot of changing all the content of coffee. So as when we just drink it, a lot of more, only 34% nutrient can be used for human being, but less, more than 50% is just thrown in the fields. So it's so that's why we our group research here, a coffee research group in Indonesia and our university, in how to make now and with my students to do research from spent coffee ground. And this is coffee study case in kayu mas coffee as bagus East Java. This is a reduction cost and some enterprise, especially for the meeting. That what the waste is 5,730 calorie gram. So the refer is can be used as energy later on. And we can use also the by what is called advantage of flavoring biomass waste briquette as fuel to replace kerosene and LPG. This is my work before. So is we can what I can conclude that the process is low cost fuel. The furnace is used for a type of briquettes and environmental friendly and social regionality and avoiding waste problem. But now we try to background coffee waste and utilizations like coffee waste here. We can use solid residue resulting from brewing coffee and hot water, and utilization capacity is still 30 from 100%, and polluting environment. Now this one is we have to call circular economy. How to reuse and recycle the waste as reprocessing for another things. So we think about this. We want to collect with my group and with my student how to produce such product. And this one from coffee waste organic fertilizer that we increasing the intake of nitrogen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium as the soil fertilizer. If the spent coffee use only direct organic fertilizer, it can be used, but it's for economic things. We lost about this. So this one we will try to containing mineral because they have many minerals and carbohydrates. I think we can use as another things. And for economic environmental friendly fertilizer is clear. Yeah. And now for planting media of oyster mushroom, it's very important. For this in our cities, and at the moment so many young people any work at the moment. We just get money from government, not much, but if they have the idea, if we give an idea to them, we believe that the youngsters can work like this as to get earn money from this. That common media for planting oyster mushroom, because we just put sawdust and bran and husk and put coffee waste as fertilizer and become planting media of oyster mushroom. At the moment, my work is still doing, so we have no much data I can given to you. And this one, the result collected coffee waste. One of them is Barfan mushroom in Belgium. So like this one with the people. And the splicing processing for coffee waste can be utilized as a placing in the lockstone mushroom media. And sowing mushroom seed, budding mushroom seed is because we were just still doing this taken from Brazil, Belgium, July 2020. Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonny. It was very helpful. Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's ask our participants if they have any question to ask their questions in the chat box or by raising their hand. It will be great.
I'll ask a question, if you like, Maddie.
Yes, please, Jordan. Please,
thank you, Sonny. That was really, really interesting. And you said that 50% of waste is sometimes generated from the coffee and harvesting. You mentioned that as well. I wondered how economically viable are some of these uses of the coffee waste. Do businesses go on to make money from using coffee as a fertilizer, for example?
Yes, as some people, what is called a coffee shopper here, they use they just throw away. I know sometimes they put it just in the flour as organic fertilizer. So it means that if we utilize the spent coffee ground, we just we get more some earn money for them, because we the price of the oyster mushroom from the spent coffee ground is much higher than traditional mushroom here in East Java, Indonesia. And we saw many shops, because many shops coffee shops, yeah, so a lot of produce the spent coffee ground. We account that more than what in 40% of this they can get money from this one. But it calculation that we just we not need another what is called another wood or another material. We just want some rice brand, also some material from another what is called the waste of the coconut. So it's very cheap here. So it's we can get some benefit from the utilization of spent coffee ground as a moisture mushroom. Thank you very much.
And I guess if it wasn't being used as organic fertilizer, it would be putting in landfill. And as you said in the presentation, it might have an impact on the environment as well.
Yes, of course, yes, because after the pH, the acid 3.8 until 4.1 can become neutralized, become 6.8 until 7.1. So we can just we can use as organic fertilizer, or also become as briquette or biopellets. That biopellet and briquette is in Indonesia is now is increased using, because we try to avoid to cut the trees. So this is what we sell to the another shop, like culinary shop. After from the mushroom material, before the end become organic fertilizer, we can use as briquette or bracket or what is called biopellets. After biopellets, the residue can become organic fertilizer with adding by the like chicken waste and anything. So it's what they call the based on circular economy, the spent coffee ground is very useful in the future.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for your question, and also thank you very much, Sonny, for your
Benny's asked a question.
Benny, please. Benny, do you want to ask your question yourself, or I can read it from the text?
Yeah, please read it if you want.
Okay, yeah. So the question from Benny is, how did you manage the various sustainability risks in the coffee production? Sonny, could you answer this question as well?
Please once again, this.
Yeah, it is. How did you manage the various sustainability risks in coffee production?
Okay. Yes, the coffee shops in our area, in our cities, is already got certified from the local government. We have to it's called barista standard. So they have to make coffee. What kind of they use coffee? They not use mix between Arabica and Robusta because different content. So we have a certification from the local government to what is called to build such coffee shops. So they can same what is called standard, and we believe that in the future it's more much better in the future. Okay. Because certification is very important. Certification is mean that they have to make a same standard. We call barista class. Barista class. Because in Jember, you can see in Google Drive, we have called Indonesian Research Coffee and Cacao Institute. So I think Professor Ben is already seen before. So we have lucky that our city is a lot of what is called many shops, coffee shops and companies from coffee plantation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation and all the questions which you answered. Thank you very much, Sonny. Now we can go to the next presenter. So I invite Danar to present his presentation, please. Danar, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Mahdi. Okay, I would like to share my screen.
Excellent.
Can you see my screen, Mahdi?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the time. Hello everyone, I'm Jonar from Universitas Blasmart, or you can say Blasmart University. I'm from the Department of Food Science and Technology. Here I'd like to thank you for having me in this Future of Food Symposium. And today I'd like to share about our part of a research topic in our research group entitled Development of Rich Seaweed Carrageenophytes-based Biopolymers as Sustainable Food Packaging Materials. Let me give a brief introduction about my affiliation and now where am I? I'm in Solo, Surakarta in Central Java. If we say that Sony, he is in East Java, I'm in Central Java, and Solo in is the capital of batik. So now I'm wearing batik, and I guess Sony, the previous speakers, also wearing a batik. Okay, this is a short introduction about my affiliation in my country, and I belong to the Faculty of Agriculture and Department of Food Science and Technology, and I'm the coordinator of the research group of food quality and health. And our focus is for agricultural products, particularly on cacao-derived based, spices and essential oil based, tuber and legume based, and seaweed based. But today, I'd like to focus on seaweed based, in a particular for the research topic of food packaging in terms of the innovation in food science and technology. We are focusing on the safe, nutritious, high quality of food. And today's I would like to share about the focus in food quality. And the outline of my presentation will be divided into three parts: global challenges, and the main part is the seaweed carrageenophytes-based biopolymers for food packaging material and future of food. First, I'd like to, as we know that now we are facing global challenges, and plastic has an impact in environmental. So we should consider about these, these big problems. I think, I guess so. We should work together to try to find a solution to overcome this. And we and our research group try to contribute by conducting our research in a topic of the seaweed-based biopolymers as an alternative solution for sustainable packaging materials. So we try to find an alternative materials for substituting plastic, and as a petroleum-based plastic. And as we know that now we recently hear about the trend that the packaging is one of the problems that we face in a food systems. And as we know from the forecast that 60% of consumer buy products and services from companies that are socially or environmentally responsible. Now they are now considering about the eco-friendly and eco-friendly packaging. And now we know that now the problem is packaging. Now that's why we try with some activities for research, of course, so to contribute to solve the problems. And in line with the policy in our government, in the circular economy government, is in the left side we can see that this is the planning from the Ministry of National Development Planning of Republic of Indonesia in 2020. And this of course we try to achieving also SDGs in 2030, and by implementing the circular economy with the 5R, as also mentioned by the previous speakers, we also consider about it, and we also try to contribute. And in terms of our research topic, the research area, we would like to use biopolymers as materials. So we'd like to enter in this part to avoid of using a non-renewable resources where we find as a big environmental impact, as mentioned in my slides in the previous slide, that plastic as a big problem. And I enter to the outline of our main topic. I'd like to illustrate the Indonesian condition that we have. This is the coastline of we have 95,000 kilometers of coastline, and we have more than 15,000 of islands, and also we have a diverse marine bioresources. This is inspired us to explore and to optimize the resources, the bioresources that we have, and to add added value, but in a particular red seaweed carrageenophytes. Seaweed, we have more than 780 species in Indonesia, and usually we have we sell, and when I went to the a local fisherman, I visited there, and they usually only dried up the seaweed and just sell in a dry manner. And we'd like to introduce some technology for giving an added value of the seaweed. We call it in carrageenan as one of the seaweed derivative from in a particular from red seaweed or red macroalgae in as a main resources as the added value. And we in our group we usually focus in two main, carrageenan and lectins, but today I would like to talk about in carrageenan, not in lectin. Lectin is carbohydrate binding proteins. We usually use a chemical or white chemical. This is protein based, but focus today is on carrageenan. Carrageenan here is we can isolate it, we can extract it from the red seaweed as materials for as I mentioned in as alternative sources for packaging materials. And well, then this is the flow of the our research. Starting from the raw materials, we consider about natural polymers or biopolymers in replacing petrochemical based plastic, and also we should consider about the food grade packaging in terms of a quality and a safety aspect of food. And that's why we try to utilize renewable resources, in a particular marine natural product. And we used seaweed from red seaweed in particular that produce carrageenan, and from carrageenan we can utilize it as a main material for the base of a biopolymer based packaging. And as we know that carrageenan is a polysaccharide based polysaccharide, so we usually use the biodegradable packaging or edible film here from the hydrocolloid based. This is information, like a brief information in terms of the coating or film that usually used to protect food products from preventing for the food deterioration. So that's why we can maintain the shelf life of food. And biodegradability and edibility is the most beneficial properties of a biodegradable or any edible films and coatings. So we try to explore by utilizing these sources, in particular from the hydrocolloid based, and for the specific one, we use the carrageenan as the main matrix or main film properties. And this is this slide shows that how edible films or coatings can protect or prevent the food from biological, chemical, and physical deterioration. And we can see that from edible films and our coating, we usually divide it into three main materials. We use as hydrocolloid, usually from carbohydrates and proteins, and lipid-based, and a composite one. And we can use a composite one, as I did with my colleagues and my students, to develop hydrocolloid-based and incorporated and or mix or blend with the other compound to develop edible films or coatings to find to respond or to find make best properties of film in terms of the barrier properties, mechanical properties, to prevent this food for the food application. Yeah, this is just illustrate the diagram of the role of the edible films and our coatings for food. And we produce kerajinan, refined and semi-refined kerajinan in our laboratories. And by producing this, we hope that we can develop a kerajinan-based biodegradable and or edible film. We usually use kappa kerajinan. Actually, we have three types of kerajinan: iota, lambda, and kappa. But in Indonesia, we have abundant resources for kappa and iota kerajinan. It comes from Kappa ficus alvarezi for Kappa caraginae producing red seaweed, and Euchema denticulatum, or usually we can find this in the market as the name of Euchema spinosum. That we can produce iota caraginae for the derivative for the extract of the red seaweed. And yeah, this is the flow as for the development of red seaweed caraginophite based film that we've been conducting for about a decade. And yeah, we starting from the hydrocolloid based, and then we try to enhance or reinforce the properties of the film. That's why we try to mix or blend with other compound that have meaning in terms of the properties of film. This is iota and kappa kerajinan, and usually we have challenges for the hydrophilicity and the low barrier properties of it. That's why we try to mix with in a composite film. For example, here we used fatty acid to make a composite semi-refined iota and kappa kerajinan based edible film with fatty acid. This I show you about the palmitic acid for the film forming material in a composite. And also we here we try to improve the mechanical and water barrier properties, as this is as a challenge for the hydrocolloid based, in particular carrageenan based edible film. And we also tried to incorporate cinnamon essential oil, and as I mentioned, we also have a research topic in spices and essential oil. So we try to incorporate cinnamon essential oil into films matrix based on kappa and iota carrageenan for reinforce for improving the lowest water barrier properties of the carrageenan because of its interaction in the hydrophobicity of this fatty acid and also with the essential oil. So we can improve the mechanical properties of the films. We usually this is we usually use as a routine test for edible film characterization, like for the mechanical properties assay. Usually has elongation at break, tensile strength, modulus, and yeah, we try to have to overlook that the film can have properties improvement. And we also use this one for water vapor permeability test. This is a routine test in our lab for the development of the biodegradable or edible films. And this is just showing you this roadmap of our research for last decade. We from the hydrocolloid based, in particular from semi-refined iota and kappa carrageenan, and then we develop into the composite edible films from hydrocolloid based by incorporating fatty acid and essential oil. And now we are moving to develop into the incorporation of the nanoparticles into our film matrix to produce a bio-nanocomposite film. This is the progress of the our research. The goal is for producing the film that have good properties, at least to make like similar to the plastic. But we now still trying to do our best to find the best properties of the film by incorporating other substances. Here we use a nanoparticle to produce bionocomposite film. Based on this, the flow of the experimental stages, starting by producing nanoparticle, and this is in collaboration with other university in Indonesia, Universitas Padjadjaran. We work together with nanoparticles incorporation in our film matrix in a kerajinan-based film. This is from nanoparticles, and we designed the bits milling process. And yeah, this is the film casting. We use the solvent casting based for producing our films. And this is the this kind of results for the characterization. Instead of mechanical properties, we also look for the surface morphology by using SEM and AFM for the imaging, and also for confirming the functional groups, we use FTIR for comparing the constituent materials and biocomposite films. This is our recent papers based on a semi-refined iota kerajinan, and we're using nanoparticle, nano silica, and zinc oxide with 5 formulations we developed here. And this is this illustrate the result for the mechanical properties from the thickness, elongation, and break, tensile strength, and water vapor permeability. And this also inform us about the characteristics of the films based on transmittance, solubility, and critical surface tension. And also we try to conduct experiment to know about the antimicrobial activity of the film by using this is a gram-positive and gram-negative for films. And yeah, this is the part instead of thermal stability and also biodegradability that we use. And by incorporating this nanoparticle, we find that it could enhance some properties of our films that we are promising for the development of this active food packaging as required in a food packaging application. Well, this is the flow, and I can share to you, and future outlook. This is just give for our motivation. Yeah, as a human, we use bioresources and produce and utilize it to produce food and about biomaterial, but we have to do our activities wisely, considering the environmental impacts and for in terms of the sustainability. And we should not work alone. That's why I open for any collaboration that we can discuss or any question that may have. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And this is acknowledgement for our group from the Universitas Padjadjaran Indonesia is in West Java, my students, and also my research group of food quality and health. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Darna. It was Danar. Sorry, I pronounced wrongly. Sorry. Thank you very much, Danar, for your presentation. It was interesting presentation. It is relevant to some things relevant to the actual other sides of the sustainability and circular practices. Anyway, thank you so much. So I see that there is a comment or a question from Benny. Benny, do you want to ask, or I can read? It says, yes, go ahead, please.
No, you can read it if you want, Madi.
Oh, yeah, sure, don't worry. So I see that it is interesting for me because it is regarding to the Indonesia, and you said that Indonesia is blessed with hundreds of thousands species of algae, but unfortunately, algae-based industry has not taken off as the country's export product. So the question is that, oh, sorry, yeah. export commodity. Yeah. What do you think that the country needs to do to improve the adding value of those products? Do you have any suggestion, Danar?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mahdi. Thank you so much, Professor Benny. Good to see you here. Yeah, this is our challenges to improve the added value. Actually, from the perspective as part of community, and we, as I mentioned, that most of our fishermen, local fishermen, they usually sell only the dry seaweed or dry algae. They didn't process into other, let's say, intermediate product or end product. For example, karaginan. And when I went to the some locations near to the of course in the local fishermen, yeah, one of the reason is also the capability of transforming the algae into the added value product. For example, karaginan. They don't have any capacity for doing something, for giving an added value of this. So they just choose the easiest way by dry it into the sun dryer that we have almost every day. We have it and just dried it and then just sell into the dry form without any technology approaches. That's why when I went there, I tried to introduce as a transfer technology to them, and they now consider about converting dry form algae into the added value algae, and I think that's good way. We and of course we cannot work alone. So that's why I say that in the last one we should work together to overcome these issues, and of course for the link and match with the industry. So also important, because usually they have we have the resources, but from Karajian we still import it. So it's a quite pity in terms of ways. I think by the collaboration with other institutional bodies, for the research institute, universities, and also industries, I think we can make it possible. We can have very abundant resources that we can use together, and we can transfer our knowledge, transfer our expertise into the local fishermen. That we can add added value for the materials, for the seaweed algae, and transform it into the added value one. And we can try to of course we need collaboration with other bodies. So I think it's a good way to enhance the collaborators among the institutional researchers and or the industrial. I think
Thank you so much, Danar. It was excellent. So thank you both for the question and answer. I can see another question in the chat box by Hijra, and it is, what is the government support improving this sector? What has been done? And also, is there any collaboration with the research center in Indonesia, such as LIPI, etc.?
Yes, we have it, but the important thing is the communication, I think. So we work in a line. For example, research center work in a B line, and government works in C line, but we didn't have a meeting point yet. So it's just work in our own lines. So I think they use everyone has a contribution, but we still don't have a big impact because we go in our own way. That's why we should consider and thinking about the collaboration way among us, and we can sit together and make a priorities, and government support in improving the sector, but still in a slow pace. So I think it should be better to make more and more collaboration in from many perspectives and many many institutional bodies. Yeah, of course for industry also. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Hijra, for your question as well. And now, if there is any question, if there is no question, we can go to the last presentation. And I hope that one of our last presentation presenters to be in this meeting. Could you confirm if you are here, one of the presenters of the last presentation with the title of Scenario-Based Simulation Optimization of Food Production System, considering bottlenecks and preventive maintenance? No?
I'm not sure if they're here.
Okay.
Maddie, I have emailed them the link again and given them some instructions to join using the meeting ID.
Okay, thank you so much. So, we can, if you, if you agree, we can conclude that what we have presented up to now, and then if they join, we can continue. Otherwise, we can finish. Right, Jordan? What do you think? Or
yeah,
maybe,
I mean, is there any final comments that any of the speakers would like to make?
or maybe Benny, if you have any suggestion, or any comments, additional comments from the other participants.
No, I had excellent presentations. I enjoyed that. Although I'm on the listening mode before.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming to the session.
Yeah. Okay. So Jordan, we in this presentation, I mean in this track, we discussed 2 literature reviews and 1 mathematical model with a multi-objective mathematical model with the simulation optimization approach. Also, we had 2 papers with considering of the circular economy of coffee and also sustainable food packaging materials. So I think we can finish. It is over to you. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it was really interesting what some speakers presented, and the kind of theme around Indonesia that we had going on here, and the circular economy was quite interesting. So the use of algae and Sonny discussed making things from coffee grounds. I think that's increasingly important kind of going forward, in employing this. And it's interesting that how Indonesia is kind of pushing this forward, if that makes sense, because I know that Indonesia has visited 2 years ago, really have kind of circular economy on the agenda at the moment. And I'd like to kind of, I suppose, know how these practices are being employed elsewhere as well, and how they're perhaps being distributed across Indonesia. Yeah, there's a lot of research that kind of goes on, I suppose, in Java, in the main island, but
yes.
Yeah, can you comment on that, Sonny?
Yes, I have idea that I think we can score much broadly the agenda like this ones, but in the future we can make collaboration in the research paper. I think it's a good idea, and also make much more information about the symposium like this, so we can inform to our students in Java. So it's much more participant in the future. I think it's good. Also, we can share the information. What is the conclusion of this meeting? The rules, and it's a good idea for this this event. Thank you very much, Jordan.
Great.
Yeah.
Did you have any?
I mean, the first one is research collaboration, also paper research. I think it's a good idea in the future, and maybe we can think about this.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great to expand the activities. And I know that Benny's been a real leader at Coventry University in connecting Coventry with researchers at Indonesian universities, which has been great.
Yes, because we have a lot, because Indonesian research coffee and cacao institution in Jember in East Java. So it's a very glad that Coventry can visit us in Java. It's called ICRI, Indonesian Coffee Research and Coffee Cacao Research Institute. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I know there are any more comments on how the kind of algae research is expanding Dinar. So again, this is something that Benny pointed out as being perhaps underexploited, underdeveloped, given that there's so many different types of algae. Indonesia and Indonesia is this kind of huge fauna of different environments, different ecosystems, etc. It's got a kind of, it's known for having kind of great weather and really kind of beautiful places to go and see. But the kind of other side of that is that there's lots of organisms, I suppose, to exploit in kind of sustainability agendas, etc. What do you hope to kind of going forward with your research, Dinar, to move on to next? Okay.
If
I'm not sure if you heard my question or not.
the question, Pak Danar, I think one of the interesting endeavors that the Indonesians are going forward is usually looking into commercialization and downstreaming, because that's typically the weakness. You develop something, but then there's no link between product development and the downstreaming and commercialization on that. So I've just spoken to one of the players in seaweed, and this company is doing this, and from their point of view, it's all about investment, all about funding. Yeah. But on the other hand, the government side cannot fund such a high, high TRL, because commercialization is high technology readiness levels. So there seems to be a gap in there that is not being able to, that they're not able to, in terms of scientific research, they've got a very good support from a research institute in France. I don't know if you heard the term CEVA, CEVA. So they're one of the leading algae research centers in the world, probably. So they've been supported by this CEVA, but unfortunately, that's there are so many complexities in terms of policy, so they know what to extract, how to increase the adding value from this product, but it doesn't seem to go anywhere. It's really difficult. So maybe you have any experience that you want to share with us. What's wrong with that? And what needs to be done?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Pak Benny, link and match with industry and the gap between the government. Yeah, we actually face these problems here. That's why we try to find a partner in terms of the researchers and scientists from other institutes. But for the downstreaming, based on for the 3RL level, technology readiness level, that's the key point that we should overcome it. And yeah, I agree with you. We try to find the other possible collaborators from the outside to support the downstreaming, because yeah, we usually take a look of an example, but no one start for the as the initiator for trying in the front lines about it. So I agree with you to try to find the other possible ways to to reduce the gaps and to try for the commercialization by downstreaming, but of course by using the our networks from the government and also the industry. Industry is one this is the weakness, I think, from a perspective of mine. Yeah, that's my perspective in responding for your suggestion, Benny. Thank you.
Also, thank you so much. And also, I see that Hijra wants to say something. Do you want to? Yes, go ahead, Hijra.
Yes, Mahdi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'd like to greet Professor Benny and then Professor Danar as well. I don't know if you have already heard about the Nano Center for the commercializations that Professor Benny suggests us to for the prospective movement of many kind of sector, that nanocenter is independent body, because we already noticed that there are so many gaps, like we need to do improvement, but the governments in the other side, it's not that in line, or I don't know, it's political things, many things. And then so that's why nanocenter is independent body to support any research and then or technological inventions regarding many sector, food including. So nanocenter is quite prospective body that we can rely on. There is I know Professor Taufikur Rahman, probably you have ever heard his name. So he will encourage and support this kind of research, I believe. Yeah. That's it, to enrich this discussion about this food sector. Thank you very much, Pak Danar, Professor Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Professor Taufikur Rahman. Okay, yeah. Okay, later we try to find, or maybe you can give a contact from you to. I'd like to try to contact him as one, alternative to solve the gaps. Yeah. Thank you, Hijra.
Any suggestion or comments from the others?
We can bring this session to a close if no one else has got any comments they want to say. But yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to all the speakers. It was really interesting. Good mix of presentations there that covered the topic of food supply chains, and also mentioned the circular economy as well. And as Benny said, the sort of difference between the kind of really integral work around understanding how you transform some of these materials, and at the other end of the scale, how you adapt that and how they're employed by businesses, etc. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thank you to all the speakers. Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
next is just going to be a short closing of the symposium. We'll start in a few minutes. We'll perhaps have a short 5-minute break, since we've been